Hey there, welcome back to Tennille Talks. All right, y'all. So I want to mention something. I don't think I mentioned this on the last reading, but if I am repeating it, please forgive me. On Sunday evening, I told you I wouldn't post in the morning. Anytime I don't post in the morning, like anytime I break our schedule or our routine, please check the community board. And most times I'm going to explain to you when the video will come, okay? So on Sunday, I posted in the evening and it was audio only. When I first created this channel, everything was audio. I never did video face-to-face. Would you be willing to be a part of a membership for our channel if I were only to do audio readings? Now, I'm going to offer a lot more at some point in the membership, but to begin building the membership, if there were 2 to 3 audio videos a week, not face-to-face, you don't see me, but you can hear the message just like you got to hear on Sunday, would you be willing to be a member? Again, that's about 2 to 3 audio message each week. And I'm thinking that the total for the month would be $3.33. Tell me how you feel about that, okay? If it is a go, then I will probably start that very soon. Okay, y'all. So to begin the reading, I have the energy of you being in a rowboat. And what I'm really seeing is that you have moved beyond a certain season or a certain time period where you have been mentally conflicted with self. There could have been environments, there could have been things that you were attempting to pour yourself into, whether it was a connection, a job, something. But it almost seemed like every time I try to pour myself into this space, every time I try to connect with this person or whatever this project is, every time I do this thing, it causes me some type of mental conflict. I'm in doubt, I'm in worry, I'm going to war with myself. One of the reasons is because I feel like the space that you kept trying to fit in, it was a space that was never going to be able to hold you. When I'm talking about the energy of air, I'm talking about your ability to communicate. So this is your throat chakra, but this is also your intellect, your wisdom, your knowledge. Some places just aren't big enough to understand you. Some people aren't big enough to hear you talk and to be able to comprehend what it is you're saying. And so if you ever felt like, why every time I do this thing or I'm amongst this group, or why is it that I always end up in a state of confusion or in a state of doubt? Like, why does this happen? Sometimes those things happen in order to get you to move to a situation or an experience or an environment that is going to accommodate how big you really are. Sometimes the air inside of you is just too holy for certain environments to be able to really carry or understand what it is you're here to do. Now, you're also coming out as having a guardian angel. And so anytime that you went through obstacles, anytime that you went through challenges, you didn't go through them alone. You always have like this level of protection. So I have a handmade card. It says, I am no longer shrinking myself to be more digestible. You can choke. One of the reasons why you have gone from the 5 of Swords to the 6 of Swords is you're like, you know what? I gotta move, I gotta go, I gotta change scenes, I gotta change the environment, I have to change the relationships. Like, I literally am having so much trouble in this space or attempting to do this thing because this is not the way or this is not the location that I'm supposed to be doing it in. And so if that resonates with you, it's almost like it took a certain amount of strength. When you start cutting people off, when you start burning bridges, when you start changing the scenery of your entire life, it requires you to believe in yourself in ways that maybe a lot of people don't understand. And so you displayed a certain amount of strength. Now, a lot of people will say that you are lucky. When people say luck, it's because they really don't have the connection to the Most High that understands this has nothing to do with luck. This has everything to do with my link. Who am I linked to, right? And so it is your obedience. It is the way you show up. It is the way that it is the relationship with the divine that allows you to appear as if you move through life in a very lucky way, right? And so sometimes luck is just the best way people can describe divinity. And that's okay. But there's something about your strength. In order for you to be able to relocate, sometimes the relocating is just a mind. It's just a state of mind. It is a consciousness. It is an awareness. Sometimes you had to elevate because maybe you were a size 10 and you kept trying to fit yourself in an environment that could only hold size 7s, right? And so this is about saying that finally, when you recognize, yo, I'm a 10 and I've been here with these 7s for so long, the handmade card I have attached to this, it says, I release all scarcity programs imprinted in my DNA. And so the season that you are moving into, or the season that you are in and trying to get acclimated and comfortable right now, it is because you have broken things off of your DNA. We are talking about scarcity programs that have been imprinted. And so if you think about your family, if you think about your lineage and just the quality of the relationships and the way that life has unfolded for most, it is almost like there are certain environments that you have become too big for, not because of ego, right? Not because of luck, but it is because of the amount of strength that you carry to recognize, I have to honor me. I have to honor my voice. I have to honor my wisdom. I have to honor my knowledge, my heart. Like I literally cannot fit everywhere. And as soon as you make peace with the fact that everybody or every place is not going to be able to hold you, it's almost like that is when the scarcity is broken off of you. The things that had been attached to your DNA, the very things that were attached to you that a lot of people have just grown comfortable with, these are the things that you had to break off of you. As soon as you break them off, it's like, thank God I'm a size 10 and not a size 7, right? And so now you got to go to where all the 10s are. And it takes strength, it takes courage, it takes willpower in order to move from that 7 way of living in order to the 10. And so this is about you going through a metamorphosis. But if you didn't have the strength and the power and the belief in self, you may not have gotten here. So like this is where you got to give yourself a high five, an amen, a pat on the back. Like this is where you celebrate yourself, because nobody could get you to row or to move away from the rough waters to the calm waters. Like you had to do that, right? There are certain things that we can control and there are a lot of things outside of our control. But you recognizing that you don't fit in a certain environment and then you refusing to try to make yourself fit, like that takes strength. Because a lot of times when you start to move different, think different, speak different, behave different, the same environment that accepted you when you were attempting to be small, they are going to be the same environment that is going to reject you when you recognize that you are carrying something bigger. Okay? Now, in the process of you moving from the energy of like trying to be a size 7 and you're really a 10, it's like now you are going to reduce losses. And so if you were living in an environment, not necessarily physically living, but like just a state of being, if you were attempting to exist as a version of yourself that was way smaller than you really were, you may have experienced a lot of loss or a lot of setbacks and troubles, not because you necessarily deserved it, but it's really to get you to wake up to the discomfort. Like it's supposed to make you so uncomfortable in order to get you to recognize like this ain't it, like this is not you. Like keep going, keep growing, and don't be afraid to do it. Be very unapologetic about the way you stretch your wings and discover the totality of who you are. In the center of the reading, we have the energy of the hanged man. Being in the hangman position is not necessarily comfortable, but the beautiful thing is about being in a period of suspense, being turned upside down, or dealing with when life is put on a pause. It's like nothing's growing, you can't pursue anything, you can't really change or shift anything. When nothing can move in your outside world, it is because something internally is needing to shift, right? And so if you were to look at your earth life for a period of time or for a certain amount of seasons, it may have felt like nothing's growing, nothing's moving. And physically, no, it wasn't. Nothing was moving on the earth. Nothing was changing. You couldn't advance. You couldn't evolve. It's because everything had to take place within. And so while you were stagnated, while you were on a break, while you were on a pause, it is because God was giving you the direction about where you really need to be, what you really need to do, how you really need to live. My handmade card, it says, go where God leads you. That is where you'll thrive. And so it's almost like you were going to stay upside down, turned upside down. You were going to remain very uncomfortable until you heard the call, until you picked up the vision, until you got the download, until you got the image. It was almost like, no, I'm going to keep you here. Right? None of the jobs you apply to are going to respond to you. None of the relationships you try to build are going to be successful. Nothing you attempt to grow when you were attempting to do it as a size 7 is going to work. I need you to recognize that you are a size 10. Like that is the point sometimes of us being in the hangman. It is to get us to surrender to the reality. If everything I'm trying to control isn't working, it's not changing, it's not moving, then what is it? What am I missing, right? This is the period of time that you were going through. And so it's like now that you recognize your true size, your true form, your true identity, now you are moving to a period of sweet success. And so you had to shed the scarcity programming, but in order to shed the scarcity programming, you had to get tired of trying to fit into versions of self that were better for people to receive you, but it was miserable for you to attempt to be that way, right? And so now you move into this shift. And on top of shift, I literally have the Most High. And so this is a shift that is ordained, scheduled, and planned by the Most High. This is a divine moment that nobody can change, nobody can take away from you. It says, may you never forget your worth is not defined by someone else's inability to see it. And so one of the reasons why we try to fit ourselves into places and spaces that really don't accommodate us is because we think that these people are somehow a reflection of our worth and our value. And the Most High is like, no, you got a whole guardian angel. You got a whole divine calling. If you don't stop messing around with them nobodies and remember that you're a somebody, like, you know what I'm saying? And so now I'm going to turn you upside down. I'm going to put you in the hangman position, low-key sacrifice, because I need you to get rid of that version of yourself. And so now that you go through this shift, which the Most High has his hand all over, it's like you're finally recognizing that your worth and your value is not determined by anybody outside of you. It is all coming from within, and that is where the Most High dwells. That is what the Most High has the ability to govern. It is a relationship that you have with yourself. It is everything internal. And so when you go through this shift, now you are going to be able to ground something. When we're talking about grounding something, it's about something that is going to give you stability and security. It's like now you are ready to drop your anchor. If you ever tried to drop your anchor in different places in different seasons, it wasn't the right place to root, right? But as soon as you're turned upside down, as soon as you honor the shift, and really it is a mental shift, a shift in your identity, recognizing that just because they didn't see me, because they didn't acknowledge me, because they didn't celebrate or value me, it doesn't mean that I don't have anything to offer, right? It means that they didn't have the capacity. They're 7s and I'm a 10, and that is okay. But the problem is when you try to use the perspective of a 7 in order to affirm that you are a 10. Never going to work. You got to know you're a 10 because you're a 10. So the Most High is going to work on you until you recognize that. And so now, once you recognize that, now you get the gift of foresight. Now life looks and feels different. And so you were in hangman, nothing was growing, nothing was working, nothing was changing, because something in here had to change. Something in here had to change. When that shifts, you get the gifts of foresight. Now all of a sudden you have ideas, you have images, you have downloads, you know what to grow, you know what to do, you know where to go. Now, I have the energy of the 3 of Pentacles. Now, this could be a collaboration, but it can also be like a moment where you can grow something that you've been carrying. And so 3 Pentacles in this reading, I'm really seeing it as seeds. It's almost like, listen, you have always had 3 seeds inside of you. Of course, you got more, but let's just say you have 3 divine seeds. These 3 seeds are going to take you to a certain amount of independence where you won't really need to rely on a boss. You won't need to rely on anybody because you have always been carrying a divine harvest. I have a card. It says, but you got what you wanted, but you lost what you had. Now, I don't know if that is somebody else speaking or if that is the perspective. So there may have been a period of time where you kept trying to drop your anchor. You got what you wanted, but you kept losing what you had, which could have been value. You could have lost access to your own worth and understanding because you kept going after the things that you wanted, but maybe they weren't necessarily fit for you. And so now you're moving into this energy of independence. This is where you manage your money. This is where you have the ability to guarantee your own security, because when you're looking out and you're using the gift of foresight, you now have the vision of you being a 10 and nothing less. Okay, so now I'm going to clarify, and I'm going to clarify my homemade deck with this one. So the first card I'm going to clarify, it says, I am no longer shrinking myself to be more digestible. You can choke. And y'all remember that my handmade deck, or the most recent one that I made, I just used community posts that I like, motivational things. And so when you decided not to shrink yourself, when you decided I don't want to be a 7, I'm not going to be a 7, I'm over it, this is what created a soul activation, right? Because your soul already understands your value, understands your worth. Your soul knows exactly why it needs to return. It knows the seeds that it carries. It knows the seeds that it needs to grow. But you consciously have to know that in order for this relationship to work. And some people will call luck what is truly a soul activation. It's because you recognize that you recognized you finally consciously. And so allowing everybody else to choke, right? You're like, I think about steak. You know how sometimes when little babies or little kids are first starting to eat meat and you don't really give them a whole piece of steak, you don't give them a hot dog, you don't give them a whole anything. You have to cut it up into pieces so that they can chew and digest it. Well, for a period of time, maybe you were giving people just doses of you. Maybe you weren't showing out in full form because you didn't want anybody to choke. You didn't want anybody to and it's like, no, if they can't eat the steak, if they can't pick up the whole damn chicken leg, right? If they can't eat the whole thing, then this is not the people that you need to be eating with, right? And so you were cutting yourself up for a period of time. You had to get tired of doing that. As soon as you got tired, soul activation. The next card we have is receiving a gift. Now, receiving a gift comes on top of releasing scarcity programs that have been imprinted in your DNA, right? But it is only because of your strength. Now, your gift could have been strength because you need to have a certain amount of strength when you're the only 10 in the land of sevens, right? So now it's almost like you can receive gifts, but I almost feel like these are divine gifts. These are divine traits. I feel like sometimes our DNA is blocked. If we are existing in a lower version of self, it's almost like we're not able to access the trueness of our wealth, the trueness of who we are. But as soon as you break off certain types of programming, scarcity, now the abundance programming comes in. And so now you can tap into people, places, and things that you never would have access to as long as you were willing to cut yourself up so everybody could eat on you. The next card I'm going to clarify, it says, go where God leads you. That is where you'll thrive. And so we have affliction, we have delusion and suffering. Now, so what I'm seeing here is this is what I was saying before, the discomfort that you were feeling, being uncomfortable, going through losses, not really being able to have success, not growing anything, not really being able to materialize anything in your earthly world, whether it be relationships, jobs, homes, whatever. Planting seeds and not watching them grow caused a certain amount of pain. It caused a certain amount of affliction and suffering, but that was because you were trying to do it in a state of delusion. If you were believing you're less than you are, then you're delusional. And so God is like, you know what? I'm tired of this shit. I'm going to turn you upside down. Now you can't grow nothing. Figure out who you really are and then watch how this story unfolds. So the next card that I pull is going to clarify, may you never forget your worth is not defined by someone else's inability to see it. And so you are who the Most High says you are. There's no funky human on this earth that can tell you who you are or what your worth and value is. Nobody. Okay. And so the card I have, it says, what I want wants me. Energetic match to your heart's desire and soul purpose. Now you can manifest and attract. Listen, once you understand your true worth and your value, once you understand that this physical world can't tell you who you are, what you can have, once you recognize that everything comes within, it's like now you become a vibrational match. You want it, you can get it. What you want wants you to. Anything your heart desires, well, it's desiring you as well. Literally, it's like you unlocked. But what you unlocked, it's like the frequency of abundance. You unlock the frequency of the Most High. Finally, you have become a co-creator. Finally, you recognize that life doesn't happen to you, but it happens alongside you. And what's inside of you has the ability to shift and shape your world. Shift and shape your world. The final card from this deck that I'm going to pull is going to clarify. You got what you wanted, but you lost what you had. You got what you wanted, but you lost what you had. Burning bridges. So now this is your energy. In order to get In order to go to where you are divinely called to go, maybe it did require you to burn bridges, right? And that's what I'm saying. All of those 7 type of scenarios and sceneries where you kept trying to grow unsuccessfully, it's almost like you had to burn those bridges down in order for the Most High to really recognize, that ain't for you. Like you had to be trusted to walk in your energy of a 10, but you had to believe it. And in order to make sure that you really believed who you were, you had to faithfully and confidently burn bridges, meaning you had to lose what you had. Listen, every bridge that was able to access you that didn't reflect your value, you wanted that bridge to exist. And as long as that bridge exists, you will lose what you have. And I'm talking about your creativity. I'm talking about the source that lives in you. I'm talking about the divinity that flows in you, right? It's almost like you lose a piece of yourself every time you try to be smaller than you really are. And in order to recognize your true worth and value and size, you have to burn down all of those bridges that took you to a lesser or a lower version of self. So the final deck I'm going to pull is going to come from the Kipperish deck from Intuitive Kev. The first card I'll clarify is Guardian Angel. Now, Guardian Angel comes out with the energy of the 6 of Swords, but it also comes out with the soul activation. Your soul activation would never have come unless you would have stopped chopping yourself up to fit the mouths and the feeding styles of other people. Endings. And so your soul activation could only come if you were willing to literally create endings in your life. And that is not easy. A lot of relationships are not going to be able to survive and thrive when you become a 10, right? There are a lot of jobs that don't really want to see you rise. They don't want to see you chase. They don't want to see you grow. They just want you to forever be comfortable as a subordinate, right? They don't want you to make the rules. They don't want you to lead. They just want you to forever be this follower. And so your guardian angel almost protects you as these endings happen. And sometimes the endings are guided divinely, meaning a lot of roads in your life may have been closed. And they were all closing because those were roads that were leading you to lesser identities, lesser versions of self. The next card I'm going to use to clarify, it's going to come on top of shedding. Jezebel. Endings with Jezebel. Now, Jezebel is almost like the energy of lust, right? Sometimes this is about like a misuse of your sacral energy. So that's your sexual energy, that's your emotion, that's your creativity. Maybe the way that maybe you were just pimping out your sacral chakra to a lot of people that were living in the Jezebelian energy, right? Like maybe you didn't understand the divinity in you. And it's like you can finally receive a gift, but you're going to have to be strong. You are going to have to rid yourself of those desires. You are going to have to rid yourself of any type of lust. Now, sometimes lust is going to come in the form of how you relate to yourself. So it could be gluttony, it could be greed, but it also could be inviting people into your life that are carrying this type of energy, right? And so when you are shedding, you're shedding any imprints that Jezebel has left on your DNA. Because listen, when you're operating in lust, when you're carrying some type of attachment and you're only worrying about desires, when you're only worrying about feeding the flesh, that is scarcity. Because you're so much more. But if you only honor your flesh and what your flesh desires, well, then you'll never really move into your own divinity. And so Jezebel, the energy of Jezebel, it could have been something learned, it could have been something attached, but it definitely was some type of programming, whether you were raised in it or whether it was something that you experienced by way of your connections or just the environments that you put yourself in. The next card I'm going to clarify is going to come out on top of Sweet Success. Trusted. And that's what I mean. Like the divine was not going to let you get out of this hangman position. You know, not all sacrifices are done by evil people. Sometimes the Most High needs to literally sit us down and put us in time out until we can be trusted. Now that you are trusted, now that you will recognize, you know what, it's really not that hard to get what I want. Now, if you're a 10 and you're living in the land of 7s, it's really hard because you're not even operating in your authentic energy. But once you honor and value who you really are, you stop making yourself lesser, you stop adapting to the lower. It's like now the divine can trust you to carry all the gifts and the gems of what it means to really be a 10. The next card I'm going to clarify is Foresight. Whoa, so many came out. Hold on, y'all. Hold on. I still had 2. Okay, so now we have karma. You know, karma isn't good or bad, but this is about cause and effect. That's all karma is. And so foresight is literally it's the ability to be farsighted, to almost see into the future, to see the things that are going to bring you wealth, security, stability, and value, right? And so once you start operating in the gift of foresight, only because you no longer allowed other people to determine your worth or your value, and because you walked away from people who couldn't see who you were, not only do you get the gift of foresight, but now, like, the law of karma is starting to listen. Everything you do now is going to give you the proper effect. The reason why you were living in some type of affliction or delusion is because the causes, like the things that you were putting out into the world, the effect of it just wasn't fit for you. So it has to make you uncomfortable. It has to almost distort the life that you really want to live. And so this is like, fine. Once you go through the shift, you recognize that the Most High is trying to tell you, listen, what you want wants you. You don't have to fight. You don't have to struggle, but you do have to honor you. Don't chop yourself up so that they can eat. Don't do it, right? Who cares if they can digest you? Let them choke. Let them choke. Who are you? What are you capable of, right? And so now we get karma. But karma only comes when you are trusted. And this is good karma. Karma is not bad. But it's like, for a period of time, you may have been planting seeds and you weren't seeing the proper effect, right? Cause and effect. I want to see a certain amount of effect, so I'm going to cause this to happen. And when it's not happening, it frustrates you. And it only frustrates you, it's because the foresight, you don't have the gift of foresight because you're not honoring self. Okay. The final card I'm going to pull is coming out on top of independence. Yo. It literally says actual money. Actual money. Actual money. And so the effects of what it felt like to live in a lesser version of self, it was uncomfortable and miserable. But now that you have moved your mind, you've moved your heart in the way you identify with yourself internally, like now that you are operating in the right frequency and vibration of who you naturally are, you are going to see a life of abundance as opposed to a life of scarcity. Y'all, this is a bomb-ass reading. And wherever you are on this path, whether you are still hanging upside down in this suspension, stagnation, or pause type of energy where you're forced to take a break, it is only you needing to take a break until you recognize where God wants you to go. As soon as you go to where God wants you to go, you begin to thrive. The next stop after surrender is thrive, right? It's not comfortable to deal with suffering. It's not comfortable to deal with affliction, but lose the delusions. See yourself for who you really are. Recognize your value. Anybody that couldn't see or honor you, that is a reflection of them. That's not a reflection of you, right? So burn that bridge. Anybody that wanted you to be a 7, anybody that needed you to be a 7, anybody that liked you a little more when you were a 7, you burn that fucking bridge. They can't access you when you're a 10. See, sometimes you got to play small because there are only certain people who are going to deal with you or small. Once you start growing, they're not going to like you anyway. So sometimes it is important, like, you know, everything happens for a reason. All of those seasons as a 7, they happened for a reason, right? Because you need to see how people treat you when you are less, right? You need to see it, because when you grow to this 10, it's going to tell you, which bridge do I need to burn? They've already shown you who they are. They're not going to change. They're not going to grow. You're going to change and grow. And then they're just going to try to mimic or pattern so that they can go with you. Burn that motherfucking bridge. Okay. All right, y'all. I love you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.